Hey everyone, hope you're having a good day. So picking up pretty much exactly where I left off last time round, this week has been spent trying to undo the rather peculiar decision that a previous owner had taken, because they'd decided to fit the wallpaper, in fact several layers of wallpaper, directly onto the layer of plaster which sits on top of the original stone walls. I did try to just peel off this wallpaper, but I think just over the years it become so mouldy and so fusty that it was stuck pretty good to that layer of plaster, and therefore my only option was to try and chisel off that entire layer of plaster to take off the wallpaper. That didn't really go that well, it just took so long, and this week was very hot, especially as a ginger living in Scotland. I'm just not used to heat. So I kicked the chisel and hammer into touch and picked up a power tool, an SDS drill from Ryobi. Ryobi are not sponsoring me, they didn't give me the drill, but if they want to sponsor me and send out, I don't know, like a little boiler suit for my cat and a couple of free chainsaws, then I'm all here for that. But this tool made the job so much easier. As you can see, it just kind of peeled off the plaster like butter, and that just made the job much easier. It took so much less time, and it was just a much more fun and satisfying process. Like right here, it would chisel out big chunks of plaster with no hassle at all. So a worthwhile purchase, saved me a lot of time, and time is money. I also used it in the office room. The fireplace kind of had the same issue with the plaster. It didn't have wallpaper over it, thankfully, but the plaster kind of layer that was over the fireplace front had kind of become damp, and I think that was just from when the roof was old and leaky. I think water had maybe come down and made the plaster all damp as well. So I chiseled off as much as I could of that, but I think now I just need to let that dry out, and then I'll sort it out at a later date. So in my previous video I did say that going forward with this renovation I'm going to try and do as much of the work as I can myself, and I still have tried to stick to that. However, there are certain jobs that I don't want to touch with a 50-foot pole, and one of those jobs was replacing the windows. The windows, unfortunately, like pretty much everything else in the house at this point, had become affected by the roof leaking from when the roof was leaking. Now the roof is fixed, so hopefully we don't have any more leaks, but over the years there had been obviously some internal leaks, and that had affected, amongst many other things, the timber framed windows that were in here and that you could see getting pulled out there. So I just thought, when I went to the expense of getting everything else sorted, that it made sense to also replace the windows and their frames with the exact same replica as before, but just new, so that it would be weather tight, dry, and not mouldy like the old windows were. So that was the recent decision I made, and once again this was something that I just didn't want to touch with a 50-foot pole. So I brought in Bill, who had worked for the company that I got these windows from for over 35 years. So he's an artisan when it comes to fitting windows, and just having someone like this is worth its weight in gold for fitting these kind of windows, because they're notoriously difficult to install, and I've heard from and seen from other joiners that you can mess these up if you do get the little sort of specific parts wrong, and Bill wasn't going to do that with all of that experience under his belt. Now, having mentioned the company that he worked for, they're called Mozilowski and Murray, and they're local to me, just 5 miles down the road, and I got my patio doors from them, I've got all my windows from them, and for the tiny house I got all of my windows and the front door from them. So just to shout out a local business, not sponsored, not paid to say any of this, but they do all sorts. I'll link them down below. They serve Scotland, they also serve a large part of England as well, I'm pretty sure, so if you want to check them out, I'll drop their link below. They make great products and I can highly recommend them, you know, just support local. But coming back to Bill, he was an absolute professional. He turned up at 8, he had no tea, no coffee, which was always a relief, because as I've said many times before, I've still not learned how to make a cup of tea or coffee. But he had like no snacks, no lunch, no music, just no messing. He just turned up and did the job, and did a class job of it. The big thing that can get screwed up with these windows, which you maybe saw a little bit of there, was the ropes and the weight systems which are involved with these windows. and the job of these ropes and weights that you put in are to balance the windows. If you don't do this correctly, it just throws off the windows. It means that they don't work properly. Here you can actually see Bill putting in some of the weights into the window, and like I said, these just make sure that the two elements to the windows are properly balanced and go up and down as they should do. And these are all based on the weight of the windows themselves. You then just have corresponding weights which go in the sides of the windows. And if you get this wrong, then the windows either don't work or they can be put under sort of undue stress and the timber will crack. So obviously didn't want that with brand new windows, and that's why I want Bill to do it. So delighted with that. There are jobs that you should pick and choose and hire out, and this is certainly one of the ones that I was glad that I chose Bill to do. The windows were just like for like, so they don't look any different, but just knowing that they were done properly, that they're new, and that these are unaffected by the previous issues with the leaky roof, it just sort of gives me peace of mind that this old building once again will stand the test of time, or at least have a better shot at doing so. So coming back to amateur hour with your host, me, the next job was taking away the loft hatch, which is in the room which will be my bedroom. I have two loft hatches for the exact same attic space. The other one's in the hallway, and I just felt I'd rather keep that one, and I also felt like I didn't really need two, because this one's kind of ugly, and because I just didn't really want a loft hatch in what will be my bedroom. I thought the better idea here was to take down that loft hatch and then plasterboard over that, and then add an extra light, so there's kind of like an even distribution of lights in here. So that's the plan, and that's my reasoning for taking this away. I just pushed the ladder back up into the attic. That can be a problem for future George. Out of sight, out of mind, I say. And this piece of wood here was stuck pretty good, but that was the final little piece of structural work that I needed to do, and then it was just moving on to tidying up the kind of little bits around the side, like taking off the skirting boards and pulling up the carpet grippers and taking off all of the nails which were nailed into the timber frame. I still don't have a crowbar, using the pickaxe for pretty much everything. So to reiterate my call for sponsorship earlier, if Ryobi want to send me a crowbar, then I'm here for it. Just ask for my address. I found this week very enjoyable, doing these little repetitive jobs, just doing things like taking up the skirting, taking up the carpet grippers, and taking out all of these nails. Just doing repetitive jobs like that is something that I've always really enjoyed. I hope I'm not going to get diagnosed with something by people in the comments for saying that, but no, it's just something that I've always really liked, doing repetitive jobs where you kind of just get to be alone with your thoughts. I suppose it depends on the kind of content of your thoughts. If you're having a stinker of a day, then it's maybe not the best time, but I don't know, it's just something quite soothing, quite meditative about it, and I'm here for doing more of these kind of jobs. I don't know if there are that many more. It probably gets a bit more intricate going forward, but so far I've really enjoyed it, and it's something I'm glad that I've got hands on with. It's definitely not worth hiring this out to a professional. It's below their skill grade and just not worth your time, I'd say, just from the point of having a kind of meditative experience and just getting involved. It's been more than worthwhile for me. There's a lot of stones above the walls here. I don't know what that was about. Someone at some point in history had just decided to leave a bunch of loose stones up top, but that was it. That was the final little part that we needed to do. Me and my dad shoveled all of this up, bagged it up, and took it over to the dump, and the rooms are now ready for the next stages, which are fixing up the timbers a little bit where needed, and then we'll move on to putting in the insulation and the rest. So I'm excited, I'm happy with how it's going, and I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, I'd appreciate you leaving a like and subscribing for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.